Kamil, how are you?
Hi, Grace. How are you?
Good, thank you. So just so everyone knows what we're doing, today we are going to have a discussion about domestic violence and migrants. So to start this off, why do you think migrants are so vulnerable to domestic violence in New Zealand?
Well, it is a category that is prone to domestic violence purely because of the circumstances. So if you're on a temporary visa, you are accountable in a way to another party, then you are dependent on their sponsorship and their support. And if there is a power relationship where the person becomes the perpetrator, the one that is committing the violence, and you become the victim, then if you don't know anything about this country, you don't know where to go, where to seek help, it's very difficult.
And do you think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they are dependent on the other person and they fear deportation?
Yes,
perhaps?
of course. That would be in the back of their mind. And sometimes the supporting partner uses that as a blackmail, particularly in arranged marriages where things haven't really worked out. And there are mother-in-laws involved. You know, it's a completely different setup from the Western setup. And there are other parties at play where there's power dynamics. We tend to see vulnerable individuals in those circumstances.
So are there options available in regards to the immigration side of things, so visas available for victims of domestic violence?
Well, it depends. So we have two types. I'll give you two scenarios where in one case it will apply and in the other case it will not. So in the circumstances where there's a temporary worker, husband, wife come to New Zealand on a work visa, let's say, and there is domestic violence in that situation, then the wife cannot proceed down the domestic violence pathway because the husband is a temporary worker. But if, let's say, the husband, the partner, went overseas, got married to somebody, brought her out here, and she's on a temporary visa, then because her husband, and we're only talking about females here as being the victims, because there are cases where the males are the victims too. So the female then is able to pursue a pathway for residence if she's married to a New Zealand resident or a citizen.
And what about this first circumstance that you mentioned with the temporary workers that both come to New Zealand? There is an option available for those victims too. They could go down the work, well, perhaps in some circumstances go down the work visa track on their own.
Not necessarily. Yes, they can. I mean, there are other pathways available through the current essential skills work visa. If they were able to get a job offer, that's a possibility. You could get a bridging visa. It's not actually there's no such thing called a bridging visa, but you could apply for a visitor visa to give them time to be able to. And if you get a sympathetic case officer, then if visitor's visa is granted, then you have that opportunity to get another kind of visa. There may be an opportunity to go down the refugee pathway. But it really will depend on the fear they have about returning to their home country. We have done one quite successfully, and it's been which was quite a surprise.
And do you think that this is enough protection for victims in New Zealand? Migrant victims in New Zealand, sorry.
For the residence pathway?
Yeah.
Yes, well, I think it's a wonderful pathway, and a lot of lobbying was done over the years to get to where we are at the moment. The one downside, I would say, is where there is a potential for the victim to get domestic violence residence without the perpetrator knowing anything about it. Which on the face of it is fair for her, but unfair for him. So there's a little bit of work to be done in that area. And we have had cases where the perpetrator, so to speak, has not had a chance to defend them being classified as a perpetrator.
And you used to work for an Asian women's support group, or actually run an Asian women's support group. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yes. So I come from a sort of social work background. I used to run a volunteer women's organization called Mamta. And the reason we had set that up is because we believed women were the glue in the family. And if she was happy and content, then the family was happy and content. And we saw these issues firsthand.
Yeah.
It is interesting work, these kinds of issues. And actually, I set up this organization because of one of the ladies that we represented in a volunteer capacity regarding issues that she had with her husband. And there were some immigration implications there too. So,
yeah. So earlier on in our conversation, you were saying about migrants. Obviously, they're in a new country and they're often unaware of the agencies that may be available to help them. So do you have anything to say about this, or agencies that there are?
Yes, there are refuge that they go to. For migrant women, there's a particular refuge called Shakti that one can go to. But I think if you're a migrant, you are in this kind of circumstances, you need help, talk to your neighbor. We find a lot of neighbors that bring clients to us because they're appalled by what is happening. And normally, just remember that there's always help available and there's always a mentor around. But you have to first tell.
Speak out about the issue. Yeah.
You have to tell somebody that what is happening to you.
Yeah. And I think it's good to have this discussion openly as well, to let women know that there is help out there.
It's not easy to get somebody a refugee work visa or residence through the refugee pathway. There are lots of loopholes and lots of criteria you have to meet. One particular is about returning to your home country, and there are issues around that. Yeah. So it's not an automatic right, so always get advice and seek the correct advice before you go down this pathway.
Thank you for talking to us today. It was a good discussion to have about this important topic.
Thank you
you again.